How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams. Great book, published in 2013. I've read it twice. Adams has advice that can be applied to entrepreneurs or artists, anyone who wants to succeed, really. He worked at a bank and he worked his way up the corporate ladder in that job. But at one point, he was a commercial loan officer, and he had this epiphany there when he would consult with his manager. People would come in with business ideas and they would ask for loans. And what Adams learned is that passion is not necessarily an indicator of future success, which is so interesting because it's just counterintuitive that, since when you're a kid, you hear, follow your passion, be passionate. To give an example of someone that came in for a loan, it was a sports enthusiast who wanted to start a sports store. So on the face of it, that sounds promising. But what Adams learned is, quote, that guy is a bad bet, passion and all. He's in business for the wrong reason. So it's not about passion in terms of what business is going to succeed. It's more like having a practical business plan. Somebody who kind of ran the numbers on a spreadsheet is more likely to succeed than the guy who is caught up in his passion. Something practical, like someone that wants to open a laundromat. You know for sure they're not doing that because of their passion for laundering. They're doing it because it makes sense. Another interesting tidbit from Adams' corporate career is that he says, quite frankly, that he was denied a promotion for being a white male. So he hit what he calls the diversity ceiling. And that's something that perhaps a lot of people can relate to. So Adams recounts, my boss's boss's boss called me into his office and explained that the order had come down to stop promoting white males. Pacific Bell had a diversity problem, and it might take years to fix it if it was ever fixed. My bid for upper management at Pacific Bell was officially a failure. Think of it like this. Maybe if Adams didn't hit up against that diversity ceiling, maybe he wouldn't be what he is today. This is not to say that affirmative action is a good thing. I don't think it is. However, that was just his path and his experience. So since he couldn't advance himself in the corporate world, he became what he calls a serial entrepreneur. And I love that phrase, and I love that attitude. So there's a chapter called Deciding versus Wanting, and Adams advises, quote, if you want success, figure out the price, then pay it. And I love the simplicity of that. And it's just an interesting lens through which to look at success. So if you want to be successful in business, that might be spending less time with your family, working more. It might mean going for a college major that is boring and not fun and creative. So this is the price of success. And a lot of times it's an extraordinary amount of time and dedication, and that might have negative repercussions in other ways. So are you willing to pay for that? And if you are, then you pay the price. Adams also has an interesting take on the idea of persistence. And I talked about passion earlier, and persistence is another one of these memes that is just taken for granted. All you need to do is be persistent, never give up. If you're an artist or a musician or a writer, if you just keep going forward, then one day, you'll make it. That's the hype, that's the meme. But Adams has just a more kind of precise take on this, which is that persistence is great. However, there should be some initial indicator that your venture is going to be successful, that people like what you're doing. And he gives the example of, if you're creating a product, then there's going to be some people who are really psyched about that product, and that shows potential. Quote, overcoming obstacles is normally an unavoidable part of the process, but you also need to know when to quit. Persistence is useful, but there's no point in being an idiot about it. So I thought that was funny because if your premise is kind of flawed, then persistence is not really what is called for. Like, you can end up wasting a lot of time on a concept or an idea or a product or whatever it is if it's just not quite connecting with the audience. So he gives the example when Dilbert came out, it was kind of rough and rudimentary, but there were some people that just loved it. And he says the same thing about the cartoon The Simpsons, that if you watch the first season, it looks a little rough and it's not as polished, but it was such a big success with at least some group of people, and that showed the great potential that The Simpsons had. So it's possible that you can feel passionate and you can be super persistent, but whatever you're doing, whatever it is, whether it's something creative or whether it's a product or a business, if it's not resonating with people, as Adam said, don't be an idiot about it. Sometimes you need to just take stock and just try something else. And God knows that Adams failed, as per the title of his book, on many, many things. So when you fail at something, you learn and you gain a new skill, you gain a new insight, you learn about an area that you didn't know about before, and you apply that to your next venture. And I think that's a great message. So once again, Scott Adams, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, is such a great book. It has advice of everything from like your diet to exercise to success. Most importantly, being happy, having high personal energy, and succeeding at whatever venture you choose. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Michael McCara. Please click in the description. I'm going to post a longer article on that I hope that you will check out. Thank you.